Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, I thought I would show you what a 7-degree morning looks like up here in Montana. Actually, after I filmed that, it went down to 5 degrees. That happens during the winter here, actually kind of throughout the year. Our temperature, for some reason, when the sun starts to come up, will drop for a short amount of time before it goes back up. It's kind of weird. But I hope everybody's doing well on this Saturday. My last video, I had mentioned that I wanted to talk to you guys about our economy. And it's another, let's not be in denial. And I hope that what I have to say today, you guys take to heart and you don't hear it as me being fear-mongery or, trying to be one of those voices out there that just trying to get views, because this is not what it's about. I'm sharing the things that I'm sharing because for a very long time, I didn't pay attention. I assumed everything was being taken care of for us. And it's been quite frightening realizing that all that time it was not. And so I just want to share with you a couple of videos that I watched, and just to give you guys some perspective other than what I've been saying, and to see what you guys think about it as well. So the first video was, is a Brazilian economist, and he was one of the original developers of BRICS. For those of you that don't know what BRICS is, it is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South America. And they are countries that originally came together. There are a lot more that are part of BRICS, but they came together to start a new bank system. And these are some of the reasons he said that they developed it. Number one was that they feel that the Western banking system, the IMF, is archaic and that it's just dying. It's just a dying way of doing banking. And partly because, number one, over time we've really weaponized our dollar with other countries. And there are a lot of countries that were getting to the point where they were like, okay, we never get a chance, or, this isn't benefiting us. And so if it's been weaponized, they're just like, screw this, like we're done. And he said that, then you see countries that are on the white list where they're just getting everything served to them on a silver platter. And so they kind of saw it as an opportunity for them to be able to say, hey, you know what, let's be a voice for the global South. And that's what he calls it. He also talked about the decline of the dollar, and when countries, superpowers start to collapse, he talked about the aggressiveness and the violence. And that definitely stood out to me because, we take a look at what's going on in our own country as well as outside of our own country, and there's a lot of that going on right now. Definitely he was coming at it from a propaganda, right, of BRICS because he's part of it. But some of the things that really kind of stood out to me was when he talked about being this voice. We want to be a voice for all those countries out there that just got treated so horribly. And the main banking system is in Shanghai, which is China. And he spent a lot of time talking about how wonderful China is and that they are going to proceed forward with this and basically be the power behind all this, and that they're unstoppable, and the United States is trying to stop it and fight it. And I see all of that happening, but when you think about if this movement does become the next superpower, well, what do we know of China already? We know they have their social credit system and how they control their people with it. So if this is headed toward that type of system, because I believe the BRICS currency will be digital, backed by all the gold that they've bought up, and we are succumbed to that because we've lost our superpower of the dollar, you can connect those dots. So I thought that was worth sharing with you guys, as you know, kind of coming from a point of somebody who is not Western. Now, when he said Western, he wasn't just talking about the United States, he was also including Europe with that as well. So, you know, something to think about with this BRICS. Is it going to take off? Is it not? You know, they are kind of still sitting in the background. A lot of people say, oh, it's never going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. I think based mostly off of just because there's not a whole lot of movement. It's just kind of doing this. It's trucking along. But that's what China does. China plays a long game. They're not trying to race, you know, up and take the lead like like our culture is in America here. So hard to say. But the second video was a lot like the video that I did where I said it's time to not be in denial. And it was by a guy named Dave Hodges, and his channel is called The Common Sense Show. And this was kind of his version of what I did earlier. Basically, he took facts and facing the reality. And he talked about early warning signs that it's done. Like, he's just like, you guys, I don't know what else you need to hear, but this is my last attempt, basically. And the first one was, our markets are, there's no trust in our markets. And when you hear that, you may go, well, people are making money off, just making so much money off the markets every day. And, you know, the market just keeps doing this, right? Well, he said, yeah, but a lot of those traditional investors are going to lose their asses. His point was that don't look at what the investors are doing. You need to look at what the owners of those companies, the big company, you know, the big squares, when you look at the where they show all the companies, you need to look at what the owners of the big squares are doing. And what are they doing? They're selling their stocks. They're taking cash. They're building bunkers. They're storing food and all the supplies to survive because they believe there's going to be a societal collapse. So if we're looking up to these companies as being so great and so powerful and making all this money, why aren't we listening to what the owners of them are doing then? I mean, they were smart enough to build these companies and become billionaires. I don't know if you want to call it smart enough, but whatever, they played the game. Look at what they're doing. They're not going out and starting new companies and doing all this. They're taking that cash, they're buying bunkers. Bunkers, guys, underground warehouses of space. I mean, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's in Hawaii. I can't remember, it was like 1,400 acre. I was something crazy underground bunker. Because they know what's coming, and when it gets here, it's gonna be really bad for those of us that don't have the big billionaire bunkers. And they know it, and kind of like what he said is, oh yeah, they're gonna go down there and they're just gonna ride out, let us all kill and eat each other and wait until the dust settles, and whoever doesn't die of starvation. I guess 2 to 7 million people starved to death during the Great Depression. 100 years ago, we don't really have a lot of people around to talk about how awful that was. But if you didn't manage to survive off of grass soup and you succumb to, you know, malnutrition, that's about how many people died here in America during the Great Depression. And these people are going to sit in their bunkers underground eating their, you know, Wheaties, and I know they're not eating 3D printed meat either. They're just going to wait it out. And then those of us that do survive and aren't prepared so that we have choices, They're going to wait till they're all end up in the 15-minute cities, because that's why those are what those are being built for. Those are being built for the people that are left over, that made it through the chaos and had to migrate to these 15-minute cities to live, that are completely controlled by whatever government we're living under. And I mean, you can just imagine what that's like, you know. Little drone comes, drops off your box of bugs for your weekly supply of food on your porch. You don't have a car because you don't need one, because where are you going to go? Everything you need is within 15 minutes, and you wouldn't want to, you know, make a big carbon footprint out there. Totally controlled system, you know, points to what you can get and can't get. And he seems to think that BRICS can't get their act together. So that's why I talked about that first video, because this guy was a BRICS developer. So I thought it was really interesting to hear his insight, but then to hear this person's insight, which a lot of it I did agree with. He seems to think BRICS is not going to get their act together, and that when this collapse happens, it will be globally. And if you can envision how bad it would be here, imagine countries that never really developed collapsing as part of the domino effect. I don't know that I disagree. I don't know that I agree with that 100%. I seem to think that there is whether it is China or not, I do think there is a country that will step up and lead the way. And the thing about the BRICS is their intentions are to become global, right? And I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this, but mine are, I kind of think of global economics like you would socialism, right? It's, if everybody's just fair and equal and gets the same and it all works out, what's the need for competition? Wouldn't over time you just not try as hard being one country if you're just going to all get fairness anyway? So that's kind of where we have to question this global movement. Like, how does that work out? Someone eventually has to step up to be a superpower, because like we've, you know, figured it out here in America, even though it's needs to be corrected. Capitalism is the lesser of the way to run an economy. So I don't know that I agree with him about the BRICS not getting their act together, but we'll see. The other thing he talked about was our GDP. So every country that has reached 90% debt to GDP has collapsed historically, and it's happened a few times. I talked about it in another video. I'm trying to remember. I know it was Russia, Britain, and Spain? I don't remember. But anyway, it has happened over time. We are at 130% debt to GDP. This is where he's like, look, I don't even need to go on in this video. That's a done deal. Mathematically, we're not pulling out of that. And where we got from 37 to 38 trillion took 2 months. 39 trillion, nobody's really making a big deal about it, but I believe that has only been a month. So if we're spending now at a rate 1 trillion per month, think about it, guys. I mean, it's not good, and there's really no way to explain your way out of it. The other thing he talked about, which I also don't necessarily agree with, was birth rate. So he goes, our birth rate's declining and we have no workforce. But where I disagree with that is, and in a way, kind of almost a good thing for now, at least, we don't need more people to employ because AI is going to take all of our jobs. So that I had mentioned in a video, a couple videos ago, that, you know, my son has a cute little girlfriend, and, You know, they're young teenagers, but he's in the military, and so, you know, he's thinking about his future. In fact, that's why he told me he went, one of the reasons why he went into the military. He said, Mom, I want to be able to buy a house, and I just don't see how I'm going to be able to do that. So pretty grim, if you think of it, that's what he felt he needed to do to be able to survive. Anyway, they've, you know, joke or talk about kids, and I really had a heart-to-heart with him, and I just said, you know, he's very smart. He gets it. He told me back in high school before he graduated, he's like, Mom, I know I need to be in the 1% if it's going to be even worth living. He knew. But I said, you know, you think about it. Trust me, I'd love to be a grandma someday. But really think about it. Look at where things are going, because do you want to have a child in something that could possibly lead to this? And I know it's doom. Oh my gosh, how can you sit there and be so doomsy with your child? Because I've always raised my child to be realistic about things. I don't sugarcoat stuff. I never have with him. That's not fair to him to do that. So that was definitely something I had talked about with him. So when he talked about birth rate, you know, and that kind of being part of our downfall, I see why he said it, but at the same time, with AI, you throw AI in the wrench, and it's like, I don't know if that's a point. But the other thing was our debt. So other countries would buy our debt because it was a way for them to make money off of the gain. And nobody's buying it. Nobody wants our, you know, old ass farm truck sitting in the front yard with a for sale sign on it. They don't want it. They're like, and they're dumping it. They're also coming back by and throwing out all the old tires and parts back into the yard from the used cars we've sold them before. They're done. And so when you take all of these things together and you look at them, it's literally impossible to deny that we aren't going to collapse and we aren't going to be a superpower. And there's so many other things you could throw into that perspective, but those are the things he covered in the video. And so I wanted to talk about those today because I had already talked about another, I think it was 7 stages of collapse, and I argued we were in 6, but it said we were in 5. But this is another example and very clear points of view that it's happening. And I'm not on here to be a, you know, panic or doomsy or God, I need to call my therapist after this. I'm on here because, like I said, I woke up about 2 years ago and I realized that we only have so much time. I don't know how much time. If I had to say, I'm counting on the next year. I think this time next year is going to be very different than what it looks like right now. And so I know there are people out there that are probably, if you're watching this, going, I'm paycheck to paycheck and I'm still behind. I get it. Like, please do not see where I live and think that my life is just this big fantasy, because it's not. Don't assume what you see people or what they have or what they're doing. Do not assume anything about them. I understand that it's hard out there right now. And I know we have the holiday season coming up. I do have a video that I want to talk about that. I'll probably be a couple videos from this one. But I want to encourage you, if you are in that position where you know it's coming and you're like, I almost just would rather live in denial and just face it when it comes, then because I can't control it, please don't go that route. Find people, group up, start doing where if you can only buy 5 cans of food a week and they can buy 5 cans of food a week, or maybe they're buying bottles of water, find a common area where you guys can start collectively storing that and come up with plans where, okay, this happens or we collapse, like this is our plan. Because if you're a lone wolf, you know, you're probably not going to make it. So use that as an opportunity to build a trust system. And you know what? Yeah, it may not work out for you, But you know what? It's a way better situation to be in than starting from scratch in the middle of a collapse. So try not to get the fact that you may be in a position where you're already struggling and you know you need to do this. Reach out to people. Try to trust, build that relationship with a few people. We may only have a year. We might have less. Who knows? You know, the wars that are happening right now, there's a lot that happens every night that we go to bed. These countries, things that are happening that we don't know. Some of us pay attention to it. I have a channel that I watch has a pretty good analysis of what goes on day by day in the war with Ukraine and Russia. But there's a lot happening. It's so much that we cannot pay attention to it all. But what we can pay attention to is setting ourselves and our families up for what is coming. There's not if. I've heard it so much, I'm tired of hearing it. It's not if, it's when. But I mean, it's true. And I think when is getting really close. So start coming up with a plan. Start packing stuff away, and things you wouldn't think of. I see people, this is going to sound cold-hearted, and it's not my intent to, but we've all seen those people that are on their camera. I'm so broke and I can't afford food and I feed my kids first and then I eat what's left over. But you're sitting on a cell phone paying for a cell phone service. How much does that cost you a month? And there's gonna come a point where that's gone. There is no, if you want to feed your kids, you got to get rid of your cell phone. You can't get on social media and complain about it. And I'm not being cold-hearted. That is terrible to be in that position. But it's so obvious that there are still things we think we're entitled to, like having a cell phone and a network to go online and post social media or watch social media. A lot of us, that's going to go away. So get yourself some stamps, get yourself some pens and pencils and papers and envelopes so that you can still communicate with people in your lives. Because, the mailman, he doesn't stop for anything. But those are the things that we really need to be realistic about, that we've come to just be such a part of our lives that we just still think we're so entitled to having it and that it's not going to go away, but it is. I have a couple articles that I've saved about energy, the energy crisis that we have coming. Man, I'll tell you, there are some crazy stories out there in the richest country in the world, this one right here, of people that can't afford for their homes to have power. And I'm working on that video. But my next video that I want to talk about tomorrow, I think it's positive. I think it's enlightening, and it has to do with Christianity and my relationship with it. I've talked about that a little bit before, and I'll get into detail on the video. But I found a video that I wasn't expecting to find so much validation from because of the source, and I'll get into that also. But I went to bed just feeling really good about my relationship that I have with Christianity and the Bible and Jesus. And since it's his birth month, it's kind of a good time to talk about it. So that'll be tomorrow that I'm going to bring that up. And I hope you guys are having a great Saturday and you're staying warm if you're in any of that kind of business like I am. Take care, you guys.